Hello, dear children. Welcome to Superior English. This is Simi Kaur bringing forth before you the chapter from Vistas, Should Wizard Hit Mommy by John Updike. This is going to be a wonderful journey of 1. Empowering you with superior English words. 2. Critically sketching every character of the story, still keeping the holistic view intact. 3. Questions and answers discussed from the examination point of view. Who doesn't want to hear stories? You, me, everyone love to hear stories. Stories of dwarfs, of elves, of princesses, of wizards who transport us into a different world altogether. So was Jo, and so her father Jack always narrated her a story as a ritual in order to put her to sleep. Now, if you could just look at the very first line of the chapter. In the evenings and for Saturday naps, like today's, Jack told his daughter Jo a story out of his head. What does the phrase out of his head mean? It means that Jack created a story from his mind. He made up a story, not one he read somewhere or heard from someone. Each story which Jack narrated was constructed on a similar pattern, like 1. Each story had a small creature named Roger. If it was a fish, then Roger Fish, squirrel would become Roger Squirrel, and so on. 2. These creatures always had some problem for which they approached the wise old owl. 3. The owl would direct them to the wizard, and the wizard would perform a magic spell. Abracadabra, hocus poo, Roger Skunk, how do you do? Roses, bosses, pull and ear. Roger Skunk, you never fear. Bingo! And lo and behold, the problem would be solved. And what would be the fees of the wizard? He would demand a number of pennies greater than the number that Roger creature had, but in the same breath directing the animal to a place where extra pennies could be found. So now begins the story session of Jack to his daughter Joanne. Once upon a time, in deep dark woods, there lived a tiny creature by the name of Roger Skunk. And he smelled very, very bad. He was always stinking. What is stinking? Smelling bad, smelling foul, smelling unpleasant. Now, to have an idea as to how a skunk looks like and how it uses the foul smell to shoo its predator, I have this video for you children. Please watch this.
Threats are usually enough to keep enemies at bay, including coyotes. Only when a skunk is surprised or senses it's out of options will it make the ultimate decision. Ready? Aim. To fire, the skunk extrudes a pair of nozzles from its rear.
And you can see those stick out past the anal sphincter when they're getting ready to spray. They can use those to target, and they'll direct their spray in whatever direction they want to go.
So now you must have had a fair idea of the stinky skunk. He smelled so bad that none of the other woodland creatures would play with him. He had no friends, nobody to play with him, share with him, amuse him, so he felt very sad. Jack was enthusiastically narrating the story. Jo looked at him solemnly. She hadn't foreseen this. Foreseen? Expected, predicted, anticipated. What hadn't Jo anticipated? What hadn't she expected? She hadn't expected that the poor little skunk would fall into such a kind of situation. She was stepping into the shoes of the skunk and feeling the agony and loneliness of the tiny creature, and innocent Jo knew how difficult it is to be without friends, without company, without peer at this age. Whenever he would go out to play, Jack continued with jest, with enthusiasm, remembering certain humiliations of his own childhood. All other tiny animals would cry, "Ah, oh, here comes Roger Stinky Skunk." This is a very important line, children, and here the story takes an important turn. Jack continued with jest, remembering certain humiliations of his own childhood. Meaning, the story which Jack was telling Jo, his daughter, was an autobiographical narrative. In his childhood, he had undergone similar instances of being shunned, insulted, humiliated, and teased by his friends or peer group, and hence, through the story, his very own childhood comes alive in front of his eyes. Little Jo was moved by the pitiable, sad plight of the poor skunk. Her voice shook, her expressions became grave, her legs switched tensely, and this, yes, this made her father Jack very happy. Note, children, this is an important trait of the personality of Jack, Joe's father. He was a father, and like any other father, he wanted his daughter to learn to face the ups and downs of life with grace, not get cowed down by obstacles, learn to take life's sorrows and difficulties in her stride. Refer to the lines in the chapter in the eighth para. He was telling her something true, something she must know. Well, Jack continued, the skunk walked along very sadly until he came across the owl and poured out his problem to him. The owl directed him to the wizard who had a sure shot remedy to all the problems of all the creatures. Suddenly, Joe came up with an innocent question. Daddy, are magic spells real? Sure enough, the mention of wizard made her put up this genuine question. This was a new phase in the little girl's life who was growing up to be questioning and inquisitive. It was just natural, but Jack, the father, probably did not like her to interrupt, so he replied curtly, they are real, but only in stories. The father was impatient to finish the story and had little interest to satisfy the queries of the young girl. The owl gave the direction. Go through the dark woods, under the apple trees, into the swamp, over the creek. What's a creek? A little river. Over the creek is the wizard's house. And that's the way Roger Skunk went, and pretty soon he came to a little white house and rapped on the door. A tiny little old man with a long white beard and a pointed blue hat came out and said, "Hey, what you want? You smell awful." "I know it," said Roger Skunk. "The enormous wise owl said you could help me." "Eh, well, maybe. Come in." The skunk came inside. And what did he see? How was the wizard's house? There was total mess. There were all these magic things all jumbled together in a big dusty heap. Because Jack added, the wizard did not have any cleaning lady. Now this sentence of Jack, that the wizard did not have any cleaning lady, indicated that he was old school. What does old school mean? Old school means old-fashioned or traditional. Jack was indeed old-fashioned. That is why Jack stressed on cleaning lady. This was another element of Jack's personality, children, that he was one of the old school of English gentlemen. The wizard got hold of his magic wand and asked Roger Skunk what he wanted to smell like. Roger thought and said, "Roses." "Yes, good," Joe said, very happy and satisfied with this choice of smell of the skunk. "Abracadabra, hocus poo, Roger Skunk, how do you do? Roses, posies, pull an ear, Roger Skunk, you never fear. Bingo!" And lo and behold, the entire house of the wizard was full of the smell of roses. Roses, Roger Fish cried, and the wizard said, "That will be 7 pennies." "Daddy, what?" "Roger Skunk. You said Roger Fish?" "Yes, Skunk. You said Roger Fish. Wasn't that silly?" "Very silly of your stupid old daddy." The little girl was so engrossed in the story and the character that she did not hesitate to pinpoint her father's mistake, which she felt was silly on his part. Roger Skunk had only 4 pennies. He started crying. Jack made the crying face, but without sincerity. This annoyed Jo, because she wanted honesty in every expression of Jack. She wanted him to feel the agony of the poor little skunk. Now, as usual, the wizard directed the skunk to the magic well to get the 3 pennies, which Roger Skunk got and gave them to the wizard. Having the new sweet pleasant smell of roses and getting rid of the bad unpleasant odor, the skunk was extremely happy. He ran into the woods, and guess what? All the little animals gathered around him. Why? Because he smelled so good. And they played games till it became dark, and then they returned to their mommies. Assuming that the story is over, Jo became a little inattentive and distracted. She started to fuss with her hands and look out of the window. Now, this innocent gesture of little Jo was interpreted as arrogant attitude by Jack, and he took this as an offense. Jack did not like women when they took anything for granted. He liked them apprehensive, hanging on his words. This is a dominant characteristic of Jack's personality. Jack was a symbol of male chauvinism, male superiority, who wanted women to be always anxious, restless, scared, and frightened, never confident and assertive. Therefore, he did not want his daughter to put up such gestures and assumptions. On the other hand, he wanted that she should listen carefully to the story till he announced that it had finished. Note, children, till now we had discussed two traits or qualities of Jack's personality. One, he was a concerned father, which is why he narrated the episode of Skunk's peer humiliation to his daughter so that she could prepare herself to face life with ease. Two, he was an old school man, old fashioned and traditional, because he said that the wizard's house was messy because he did not have a cleaning lady. And now we have come across another significant element of Jack's personality, that is, male chauvinism. He was a male chauvinist who believed in women to be always apprehensive and wanted his wife and daughter to acknowledge his superiority. Well, coming back to the story, Roger Skunk's cup of happiness was full to the brim until his mother asked him, "What's that awful smell?" "It's me, Mommy. I smell like roses." "Who made you smell like that?" the angry mother retorted. "The wizard," said the skunk meekly. The mother was extremely furious. "You come with me and we are going back to that very awful wizard." At this, Jo sat up, startled and agitated. "But Daddy, then he said about the other animals run away." Joanne was a small girl of 4, and like all children, she wanted to be with friends. Hence, she could very well feel the pain, the agony, the anguish of the little skunk, how it felt to be avoided, shunned, and left all alone. "All right," Jack continued, "but Mommy, all the other animals run away?" "I don't care. You should smell the way a little skunk should, and I am going to take you right away to that wizard." She took an umbrella and off she went to the wizard and hit the wizard right over the head. No, little Jo could not take this and put her hand out to close her father's mouth from uttering anything more. She did not want this injustice to take place at any cost whatsoever. And then she declared her verdict, her judgment, her decision. Then the wizard must have hit her on the head and did not change that little skunk back? No, said Jack. The wizard said, okay, and Roger Skunk did not smell of roses anymore. He smelled very, very bad again. Roger Skunk and his mommy went back home, and then arrived Daddy Skunk home in choo-choo train from Boston. They had a lavish meal, and when Roger Skunk was in bed, Mommy Skunk came up and hugged him, her love pouring for her little child, because he smelled like her little baby skunk again. Here we have a very important point, children. That is, there is no doubt that from Joe's point of view, the mother acted cruelly by restoring the old foul smell of the skunk. But from Jack's point of view, she was right, because she wanted her little skunk to retain his originality as God had made him and not be someone else. She believed that he should follow acceptance of his form, which would make him humble and modest. That was the end of the story. But was little Joanne happy and satisfied with the end of the story? No, she wasn't. Out came a question. But Daddy, did the other little animals run away? No, replied Jack, her father. Eventually, finally, ultimately, they got used to the way he was and did not mind it at all. That was a stupid mommy, Joe said with disgust. It was not, or rather, she was not, came Jack's immediate response. This particular line, that the skunk's mommy was not stupid, was emphasized, was highlighted, was stressed upon by Jack. Why? Why was Jack defending the act of Skunk's mother of the act of hitting the wizard and forcing him to restore the foul smell of skunk? This was because he was trying to convince Joe of the very fact that parents always have the good of children in their mind and they are always right. The skunk too loved his mommy, therefore went with her to the wizard to get back the foul smell. He obeyed his mother without protesting. A very important or essential thing to remember here is that this story of Skunk is Jack's autobiographical narrative. It is his own story of the humiliation and peer pressure that he faced in his childhood. His mother's domineering influence over him, whom he respected and held in high esteem, and strongly believed that whatever she did was always right. The skunk's mommy reminded him of his own mommy. Hence, he strongly defended the skunk's mommy and her act. But little Joanne, small and young, innocent, completely ignorant about the harsh realities of life, could not take the story from this angle. Which angle? That the skunk's mother was right when she hit the wizard and restored the foul smell of the baby skunk. What she felt was that the poor skunk was isolated, segregated, and this was difficult for her to bear. So she announced, Daddy, tomorrow I want you to tell me the story that the wizard took that magic wand and hit that mommy and chopped off her plump arms. No, that's not the story, said Jack. Anyways, giving her an assurance that he will see to it, off went Jack downstairs to help his wife Claire, who was painting the living room woodwork. On seeing Jack, his wife Claire said, That was a long story. Jack, who was already tired and exhausted after the story session, did not like this. The poor kid, Jack uttered. Why did Jack describe Joe as poor kid? It was because Jack was a concerned father, but he did not like the independent ways of Joe. Her questioning, her gestures, her expressions, her exertions, her articulation, which he was not able to compromise with, and often snapped her innocent queries. A part of him felt that probably he was wrong. That is why he said, "Poor kid." The other part, which was authoritative and old fashioned, was not ready to accept this. Now, children, just focus on the last paragraph of the chapter, which is a very significant part of the story, which highlights the psyche and personality of Jack, the fight, the tussle, the conflict going on inside him, his helplessness, how his own temperament of hot-headedness, narrow-mindedness was drawing him away from enjoying the happiness of family life. Here we go with the lines. Listen carefully. The woodwork, the woodwork, a cage of moldings and rails and baseboards all around them, was half old tan and half new ivory, and he felt caught in an ugly middle position. And though he as well felt his wife's presence in the cage with him, he did not want to speak with her, work with her, touch her, anything. The furniture was half tanned, meaning the unpainted part was rugged and roughened, and half of it was painted looking fresh and new. This furniture is a metaphor, a comparison of the changing times, changing circumstances, changing condition of the society from the old to the new. So the phrase half old tan and half new ivory. And in this change, Jack was not able to adapt, to change, to make adjustments. Hence, he found himself trapped, stuck in a middle position, wherein he found it difficult to switch from regress to progress, from old fashion to modernity. In short, difficult to cope up with the changing times. He was caught in an ugly middle position. Why? One, because Jack is neither being able to make his daughter sleep nor help his wife in painting. Two, he loved his family but wanted them hanging on his words, meaning listening attentively to every word of his. Since he was authoritative, he did not want his wife and daughter to be expressive, assertive, and demanding. 3. He wanted them to be submissive and modest, which is why he did not like when Claire said, "That was a long story." Being bossy and authoritative, he is not able to cope up with his wife and daughter's assertiveness and independence, or is not able to pace up with the changing times. Hence, the woodwork appeared to him like a cage, monotonous and helpless. And though his wife was there with him in the cage, he did not feel any emotions for her, any fondness for her, or any warmth for her. Now we shall discuss some questions and answers from the examination point of view. Question number 1, which carries 2 marks. Why did Roger Skunk go to see the old owl? Answer. Roger Skunk smelled very bad, so none of the woodland creatures played with him. Therefore, he felt very sad and isolated. Hence, he approached the owl to find a solution to his problem. Question number 2. Which do you think is a better ending of Roger Skunk's story? Joe's or her father's? Why? This is 3 marks, children. Now, this is a little tricky question. You can give an answer as and how you are convinced. If you are convinced with Joe's version of the story, you can give Joe's version. If you are convinced with Jack's ending of the story, you can give Jack's ending. But according to me, both the ends seem exaggerating. So we can take a mid path. If Jack's view is taken, then the innocent, tender Joe will believe her entire life that the elders have the right to hit anybody, even though the other person is not at fault. As the skunk's mother hit the wizard without any fault of his, isn't it? And if Joe's view is taken, then it will be showing disrespect to the elders. So, a proper end would be that the skunk's mother does not hit the wizard, but changes the skunk's smell to make him realize that he is supposed to respect originality and stick to his natural self. This should be the answer. Question number 3. Did Joe approve of mother's action? What did she want the story to be like? This is 2 marks. So first we'll attempt the first part of the question. Did Joe approve of mother's action? Answer. No, Joe did not approve of mother's action. Now we'll answer the second part. What did she want the story to be like? Please change the para. Answer. She wanted the story to be like the wizard hitting the mommy back with the magic wand and chopping off her plump arms forcefully right over the head. This she said because she could feel that the mother was cruel by hitting the wizard and restoring the foul smell of the skunk. So this brings us to the end of the session, children. Hope you have been able to get into the skin of the chapter and assimilate the characters in bits and parts. And of course found an appropriate answer to the question, should wizard hit mommy? Do look for more videos in Superior English channel. For satisfaction of any query, do mail me. Last but not the least, do like, comment and subscribe. Thank you.